Hello, my friends on the True Crime Grapevine. I'm your head fruit, Patti Lee, the dyslexic armchair detective. This is the True Crime Grapevine. It is True Crime Tuesday, the day I upload to let you know what's been going on the True Crime Grapevine. If you're new, hi, I'm Patti Lee. I'm just here telling you what the juicy stories are off the grapevine. You might or might not know a grapevine is about the gossip, the hap, what's been going along on the grapevine. So I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And if you don't have time to maybe watch all the YouTube channels, hi YouTube, like and subscribe, leave a comment below. Or you might be listening to this on Podbean, hello, where I think the long form really works. Hopefully we'll also have each case file, or as I like to call them, a wine flight, because it's the grapevine. They might be also separated individual cases so that you can just go to whatever case you're most interested in to hear that gossip. But for right now, we're just going to go through the most popular cases that have been on the interwebs. And like I said, please like and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. And if you are one of my subscribers already, nice to see you back. Get a drink of whatever you're drinking for our first case. So, sorry, let me just tell you about what we're going to be talking about. So, we have a number of cases to follow up with this week. This is April 26th, Tuesday. True Crime Tuesday, and we have a number of cases. This is our 10th episode. Yay! So one episode a week. This week we're going to start out with we have a horrible new case. Horrible in that it is a 10-year-old girl. It's awful. Her name is Lily Peters, and she looks like a beautiful child. It's a horrific case. I'm sorry. A second case is going to be talking about Mrs. Gall, I'm not going to say her name right, Ursula, the woman from Queens, the mom who's was the big M'd by her boyfriend, the handyman that she needed to get a new one of. We're going to have a little update on the Lori Vallow case. An update on Cassie Carley's case, what's going on with that suspect. A brief little update on Bear Morphew, who is no longer under any indictment and is a private citizen, but just, there's a few things to talk about on the grapevine. There's some scuttlebutt going on about Bear. I'm sure he can take it. And we have a little update on Gannon Stouck's evil stepmom. In my opinion, this is all my opinion, just my speculation. We have an update on, well, it's not really an update, but some information, and then also a little tidbit about Ms. Papini, but she won't be Miss Papini. There you go. That's a little thing for you. And we have a celebrity case just to chat about. I'm just going to tell you my opinion and what's been going on, the juicy story about Johnny Depp, everybody's favorite pirate. I don't know, he's my favorite pirate. Okay, so episode 10, April 26th. What's happened between April 20th or 19th, the night, and April 25th? Let's get into it. All right, case number 1. All right, this is a sad one, you guys. I'm just going to tell you. I have chosen this beautiful Beaujolais Nouveau. I'm not really into wine, even though I love Grapevine. But this was one wine I did like. It'll be my only red It's a new grape. It is, they pick this grape the third week every November, and then it's put out. So this is the last year's wine, crop, vintage, 2021. So it is, you can still find like 2019, but it is a new wine. It is young and fruity. Anyways, I picked a young wine because this baby girl, we have a horrible case. Let's get into it. All right. This happened in a small town about 100 miles, I believe, east of, it'd be the biggest city in Minnesota, Milwaukee maybe. The city is, it sounds like a Hallmark channel actually, Chippewa Falls, Minnesota. So last Sunday, Miss Lily Peters, who is 10 and in 4th grade, and she actually kind of looks like my husband's side of the family, our relatives. She's just this cute little girl with these crinkly little eyes and this beautiful dark hair, and she just looks like a dream. She was riding from her aunt's house home. So I did Google it, and if you're interested, I'm Trish Lee, because I use different derivatives of my name on Twitter. But I went ahead and tweeted to our friends at Pretty Lies and Alibis, Gigi, and at Big E at the Docket, because they were the two Twitter accounts that I saw that first mentioned this case. So this is Tuesday, and it was Monday that it came out. So they were the people that I saw Monday night tweeting about this. So hi, Gigi. Hi, Eric. And thank you. Great sources if you're interested, especially the Docket. Big E, Breaking Crime with E, I believe is his YouTube channel. But on Twitter, where you get usually like the first hits, he's known as, I forget, it's like at Eric something 89, but if you put Docket in, he comes up in a little pink circle. Definitely go follow him. He's one of the first people that always tweets out when there's a new case that you probably should be following. Anyway, so Monday night, this Lily Peters case comes across Twitter, and I did go ahead and look into it. So we found out Monday night, but they found her, so she left her, back. So Sunday, she was riding her bike home from her aunt's house to her house. And if you Googled the two addresses given and the information, and it was from the ABC 13 channel. It is K. It's always K, isn't it? K or W. Call numbers probably happen for a reason. Anyways, sorry. If you look up Chippewa Falls, Minnesota, and the name Lily Peters, you'll find this case from a 13 ABC site from the area. And I thought they had the best comprehensive information about this case right now. Anyways, they gave just basically the blocks of where her aunt lived and where her mom lived. And if you were riding a bike, it was like 3 minutes. And if you were walking, it was 6. Now, that path, though, took you down from the aunt's house down this what was a larger street. Right? And we all know we don't really want our kids riding bikes on streets, busy streets. There was another way to get home. Now the problem is there's a river she had to cross. Either way, it looked like, if I have my information correct. And it said she went on a bike path, footpath. So if you Googled it, you could see at the end of her aunt's street, it just has this starting green line. And the green line does go into a wooded area alongside the river, makes this little turn, goes past, so she was found, let me just tell you. So the path goes all the way through past a business area, and somebody on Google, if you go to Google Maps, you can hit some pinpoints where somebody put some pictures of this area where you can see where there's tables to eat lunch, and it's at this factory. It's a brewery. And it looks like the actual brewery part. And then as you can turn, and there's a nice, walking bridge. And you can go, if you go to Google Maps, I don't know if you know this, but if you go to the little layering effect, it looks like 3 pieces of paper up in the corner. If you hit that, you can hit satellite imagery, and it's all this, you can see it like it's a picture, and you can even zoom in. Anyways, you could see this path go around a hairpin turn, this little nicer, like sturdier bridge over the river and into the parking lot. So I guess from the brewery people, they can walk over into, it's like a venue for that brewery. And it's like a outside beer garden-y type thing. And they have a larger, a place to park. And then it takes you out into High Street. You go down High Street, you pass a courthouse, I believe with the county jail attached. And you keep going on North High Street down, and then you get to her street, which was East Birch. So now, so she left her aunt's house, probably was told to go a safer route, or maybe she thought it was a safer route. Not on the street, lots of cars, you could go into the street. Instead, she went on this little more, the bike path that they said people used. And I don't know about in Minnesota, but here in Ohio, Sunday it was 80 degrees. It was beautiful out. And we are on daylight savings time, so it is lighter, longer. And it doesn't say what time she left, but by 9 o'clock, her dad, she hadn't returned home. They were worried about her. They called the police by 9 p.m. So, and it's kind of late out until almost 8 around the area in the Midwest. Okay, so they call. They start looking immediately. They know which way she went, apparently. They had a dog, a canine unit was helping them, as well as somebody with a drone. They found her bike along the bike path. Looking for her. They found her 9:15 the next morning, Monday morning. So her school, which was Parkview Elementary, they'd already been talking, like the staff, like, what are we going to do? They didn't know. They just knew she was missing. Like, how were they going to address this? So they didn't have any chance to tell students before, like they didn't know that this had such a bad ending, which I can't even imagine getting that call about your baby. So 9:15, they find her body. They have not released any information about how they know that it's the big M instead of anything natural, but you can surmise this. She was found in the woods near a parking lot of that brewery, they said. So I don't know which side. It was much more wooded, and the path, at least the 2 pictures that were on Google Maps, the path was some way away from where there was like some, lunch benches or something for the factory part, or if it was actually over the bridge closer to the venue part. I think it was more in the brewery part. So, dark wooded path at night, even though a lot of people travel it, but if you go to Google Maps, you can see, if you go to the last address, the last house, I believe it's 1616, whatever the aunt's, it was North Grove Street in the 400 block. So there's this house, 1616. And it shows, like, the 2 concrete pylons where if you've been on a walking path where it says, like, you can see a sign that says no motorized vehicles. Okay. And it doesn't look great around there. Eric and I even had a little discussion on Twitter real quick about, he said, I went there on Google Maps, it looked like it was a junkyard because there was like junk on the one side. But no, if you know how you can do that 360 thing, that is where it is, where the path starts. So, I don't know. Now, we will hear more. This is horrific. I always like to say, so what can we take away from this? So we can tell, so we're not victim shaming. This is not the victim's fault. This is no one's fault. Especially because if you have somebody who's 10's getting kind of older, you're in double digits, she sounds like she's a responsible girl. It wasn't far away. The river was the only thing impeding like a direct path home. But otherwise, going down a busy street when it's starting to get dark, or going through on a path that people walk all the time, you know, the thing is, monsters are watching. And I always say, do not go into the woods alone. Always go, even in pairs can be dangerous, as we know from the Delphi murder case. If you're going into the woods, go with a group of people, please. That's just my opinion. Somebody saw this child. There's a person that mentions, now I saw, again, when you get one person who will say something, a bunch of different media sources will pick it up. So I don't know if one person said something like, oh yeah, I saw her all the time. She was always playing on this back hill. And I don't know if it's that house that 1616 this person belongs to. I'm not even going to say the name. You can look it up if you want to, because maybe just a good Samaritan, maybe somebody just saying something. But we do know people insert themselves. And what I didn't like was that this person said, oh, she was, they were out there all the time in all kinds of weather. I always saw them playing. They were around my kid's age, and she was a really cute girl. I'm getting a weird feeling about that. Again, I don't know. I'm not a police officer. My background is in educational psychology. I know about typical development and how people think. It does help me understand when criminal psychologists and behavior analysis people talk. I kind of get what they're saying more easily, but I don't know. I just find it weird that this person mentioned that he saw her all the time and how cute she was, and that his house was nearby. So, again, somebody who would see, oh, there she goes into the forest by herself and it's nighttime. I don't know. Of course, there's the brewery factory. Did somebody see her? But this wasn't, I don't know, maybe this was a normal thing she did, and maybe at this time, we also know from the Naomi Arian case, again, not her fault, but we don't want to be at the very same place doing the very same thing by ourselves anytime the sun's not up, especially, but in a secluded area. We just don't. This is a bad one, people. There's nothing good that can come with this except getting that monster. So here's to getting the monster. My second flight to talk about Ursula Gall. So let's get into it. Ursula Gall, as we talked about last week, was a Queens mom in a nice part. I don't even know why I said nice part of Queens. I don't really know Queens or any of the boroughs because I don't live in New York City. But they said she lived in a gated community, and her house looked similar to what my brother's looks like in Shaker Heights, which is a very nice Tudor home. So I'm assuming that, and they said it was worth $2 million, which is probably about the same as a $400,000 house here in Ohio. Or maybe not. But anyways, it looks similar. And I based last week's ideas about what I had to say about how, because people are like, how did the 13-year-old not hear? It looks like a young guy in that video. Assuming that everybody's like, oh, it must be the teenage son, right? And I'm like, no. In these houses, like, you can get in by the side door. You can go up or down into the kitchen or down into the basement. It's a really common layout for these homes. Anyway, so, last week we weren't sure who it was, and I believed right as I was taping that they had mentioned they had a good idea of who it was. Because by this time, they had her phone, and you know, we all know, once they look into electronics, plus they can start looking into, I don't know if you guys know what geofencing is, but stores and for other reasons have a fence around them that tells them whenever a phone enters or exits, and that's how they know how to send you some mail. And that's why people like VPNs, so that they can hide where your signal is coming from, so you don't get unsolicited ads. We know businesses are just trying to make it like everybody else, right? But geofencing helps when the law enforcement wants to know who was in an area, like January 6th. That was one way they could tell, because I believe there's a big geofence around the Capitol building, so they knew whose phone had entered. And I think it can do it even when it's off, but I'm not sure, because sometimes there's still something in your phone that has a tag. Not positive it has to be all the way off. But anyway, getting off track again. That ADHD dyslexic thing. Let's wind it back to what we're talking about. We're only on our second case. We are having Pinot Grigio with this case. Although, if we wanted to be true, we would have a Moscow Mule. Because, as we learned, Ursula went, after she went to, there was what we thought last week, because it had just happened. And when something just happens, you hear a lot of rumors. I mean, there's still a lot of rumors going on. So again, everything I say is from the grapevine, meaning it's a rumor, it's gossip. I try to give you the good scoop. I try to squeeze the, purest of juice of what is true. But as we all know, especially in true crime, you get a muddled, it's the grapevine. One person says something, the second person repeats it, and by the time it gets to me, and by the time I give it to you, it might not be exactly A, what was said, and then B, every day we know a little bit more. All right, so last week they just said she had been talking to a couple men, they thought, and they had hinted that might have something to do with it. Her older son and her husband were out of town in Oregon, and he had tweeted something to somebody who was pro sanctions against Russia. And he worked in lithium in New York, and everybody, and by everybody I mean me. But it was like, oh, was he involved in anything, or did somebody want to get at him, like retaliate for talking, for being like anti-Putin, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so again, turns out, apparently, as far as we know right now, Afra, it's a tale as old as time, right? Apparently, she, and again, not the victim fault. People have affairs. People get sad, bored, don't feel appreciated, just lonely. She is a stay-at-home mom, and her kids were out of the house and not needing her as much. We don't actually know what led to this, but I'm assuming, being a 50-something mom, you've got to really find something like a true crime podcast to fill up your days if you were used to filling them up with small people needing you at every whim. And it's, you might take up knitting, and you might take up true crime podcasting, and you might substitute teach, or you might get bored and get drawn into an illicit affair. I don't know. Okay, so from what it looks like, Ursula, though, it seems like he was a handyman working on heating, HVAC, I guess they call it, heating and cooling stuff in their house, it sounded like. And he was working on more than the house, perhaps. And it looks like they had something going on and off for 2 years. Again, your phones will tell on you, people. That and your electronic stuff, it is forever. Because whatever you do digitally, if this can be what we learn, one, we're being geofenced, so people know where you are by your phone. And two, everything you do digitally is on some motherboard somewhere. Computers, like even the cloud is connected to somewhere. Whoever owns the cloud has like a physical server that's holding all the memory of all that stuff. It is somewhere. So don't think that you can do anything, it disappears on your end. It's still out there somewhere, and they can find it. So anyway, yeah, so they tracked back who she was, whatever, and okay, it looked like maybe they couldn't tell exactly who at first. So what we did not know was going on last week was that, again, law enforcement knows what they're doing. And even though we have geofencing and all these interesting digital detectives, there's also just good detective work. Like, hit the ground, do the searches, do the grid search. So they, you might remember she was found in a hockey bag, and it was about, I don't know, a mile and a half from her house. And there had been pictures of somebody in a hoodie rolling the hockey bag, that it looked like it was her son's hockey bag, and that's what it turned out to be, from their house. And I guess there was a big crime scene in the basement. So somebody had an altercation with her at home. The knife used was also from the home. So this is like a crime of passion. So they knew they were looking. It wasn't like a hit. It wasn't really just something to her, you know what I mean? Unless it was just a real sloppy, you know what I mean? It just seemed wrong. Nothing was missing from the home, so not a burglary. We've all watched Law and Order on TV. We know how this kind of goes, where they look at things. All right, so from where she was found, they did a big search out into the wooded area, because she was found near this big parkway street, but it was also, there's a walking path and all these woods. And in the woods, they found this orange jacket shoved into a tree full, and it was all bloody. And then as they were canvassing, this guy was walking around. I mean, it's not funny. Sorry. It's not funny. It really isn't. But it's funny, not funny, haha, but funny weird, how close these detective shows, and when you hear things, how close it really comes to real life. They say criminals can't stay away from what they did. You know what I mean? So this guy was walking around and wandering around, and he had a bandaged hand, and they spoke with him, and they found, they're also at the same time, I guess they didn't just find him, but they're looking at surveillance as it goes on. And anyway, this man, David Bonilla, sort of vomited up what happened, I guess. I mean, it didn't sound like he was very good. Like, he didn't lawyer up at first. He told the police, he went with them, he told them what happened. I mean, his hands all, if you stab somebody, you are using a knife. Blood, it gets slippery. And the knife was out of the steak block. It was just right, like you just get in your kitchen. They had a fight, and he explained, okay, so I went over there, she let me in, we had a fight, she said go downstairs. That's what he said, that they then went downstairs to argue more. But it sounds like they were arguing in the kitchen. He grabs a knife because she's asking him to leave a number of times. Also, interestingly, on her, and this was one of the clues that we didn't know right away, because why would they tell us? There was a note that said, get a new handyman, in capital letters with an exclamation point. He was the old handyman, so I'm assuming that didn't help the fight. Anyways, he explains it his way. Of course, he also explained that he had been to an urgent center to have his hand looked at, and the cuts were so bad that it wouldn't stop bleeding. They sent him to Bellevue Hospital. Interestingly enough, back in the 50s, and I think it's down to the 60s and maybe 70s, until Reaganomics got rid of all the state mental hospitals, but it was known for being a mental hospital. So it's ironic that he ended up there. Anyways, they found him going back to his house after all this happened, but in the meantime, they're putting together pieces of the puzzles, finding things, seeing somebody that looks like him. He was 5'5", so when people say, oh, it looks like a slight person, well, he's 5'5", which isn't super tall for men. Anyway, he sort of tells, now it appears that he has been given, as we're all due, representation in court, regardless of our status of being an American or not, because you will hear he was, and I believe he might be predominantly Spanish speaking, I'm not exactly sure, but they said he didn't speak any English, I believe, in court. But they're making some people need a drink, are making a big deal of, oh, he came from Mexico 20 years ago, and he, you know, that whole, I am sorry. Hurting people is bad enough. I'm not gonna, I don't think there's anything to know, as if you looked at the proportion of people who immigrate either willingly or like are brought here as babies, and aren't, you know, technically Americans, but they've been here 20 years. I don't know, actually, so if he's here 20 years, but he's a 20-year-old, so he came as an adult, not as a child, but still, I don't want to, look at me, I don't want to get into it, I just sort of got into. But what I'm saying is, I don't think his status of legality or his country of origin has anything to do with what he did. I think he was a 44-year-old mixed up man who was, like most middle-aged people, looking at his life, and it wasn't turning out how he thought, and he was distracting himself. Look at how I'm just totally making up a psychological background story, but was, you know, probably like Ursula. You know, you get to a certain point in your life, and if you don't have hobbies or something that you love doing for you, people do turn to other people to fill up that, like, death is just waiting out there, and what am I supposed to do? What does it all mean? It's a distraction to have a fling, or even just a flirty, or just a flirt. I mean, the police know a lot more. I don't even know how far their relationship was. Maybe they just flirted. Maybe they just kissed. But whatever, he was much more invested in it. And he had also recently, he was married, but they were separated. And it wasn't clear how soon that separation happened. But if one person separates because they think they're getting with the other person, and then the other person, who also happens to have a different, probably a little bit more advanced lifestyle, says, you know what, no, this was like, you were just the handyman, you were just the fling, could set somebody off. So we don't know, but we don't know anything. All we know is his side, because he's the only person left to tell it. And we'll hear more about her side when this all comes out. Anyway, so what do we know? We know that this story seems to be due to the same thing a lot of these stories are. People aren't very good at hearing no, and they lose their mind and do crazy things, and it is enough to make you want to drink. All right, so we will hear more. He will be back in court. Let's see. He's being charged up to, it's second-degree murder. It's second degree because it was a crime of passion. First degree is premeditated. So, but it's still 25 years to life. His lawyers are saying, let me see right now. So Melinda Katz is the Queens District Attorney, the DA there in Queens. She is the one doing this case. He was arraigned last week, late Thursday. He did not enter a plea. If you remember from, we'll talk about next, the Valo Daybell case, you can do three things. You can enter a plea of guilty or not guilty yourself. You can have your lawyers do it, or you can remain silent. And then the court just says, okay, I guess not guilty, because that's where everything starts. That's the, like, default. So he did not make a plea. He remained silent. And right now, they are not, let's see, I'm trying to see what the attorneys, I thought the attorneys, it just said, so he went back to court today for less than a minute. His lawyer said that he would not testify in front of the grand jury. So to get indicted for the crime, either a grand jury does it or the DA does it, if you remember that from discussions we had about a couple of the past cases. Obviously, it looks like they're going to go the grand jury route, and since he had seemingly confessed to the police last week. They thought maybe he'd do it, and now he's got a lawyer, which everybody is given a lawyer in our system. So, and the lawyer must watch Scott Reich and said, you know, you're not talking, dude. Zip it. And so he's not going to incriminate himself. So obviously, I don't know what's going to happen, but he's fighting it. There. Speaking of Scott Reich, hi Scott. Scott he gives you a libertarian defense perspective, crime talk. He updates every night and does a live on Tuesday as well as a Patreon on Tuesdays. And on Saturday he does like a review. I think Sunday might be the only day he doesn't upload. So if you're into somebody and that's my defense perspective. So again, hi, if you're new, like and subscribe. But and if you're old, you know this, but I like to, if you think of it as like a Venn diagram, I like to get everybody's different perspectives. I like to get like the victim's perspective. I like to get like a feminist or a male or like a law enforcement perspective and a judicial, like as many perspectives as possible. Because I figure like Venn diagrams, if you lay all those on top of each other, maybe in the middle there's like the closest thing that might be to truth. And I'm saying truth as with a little t because everybody's truth is a little bit different because we all experience reality a little bit different. Sorry, it's my educational psychology background. But when it comes to evidence and the perspective of whom we should hold responsible, it helps to look at all those different perspectives. And lawyers, people don't like them, but man, they're very important. And you want somebody who is going to go on your side as hard as someone like Iris Eaton or Scott Wright or, you know, I would like Lori Hellis. Any of those lawyers that we hear, all of them are give a strong perspective so that we can know sometimes what we feel emotionally and morally isn't the same thing as legally, and it's very frustrating. And even you'll hear law enforcement people talk and their perspective from like a defense attorney is a little bit different again, but none of them are invalid. That's why I like, and I try to give you a little bit of all of them. I'm not saying like I love everything any of them say like without any question. I always question everybody. But there you have it. Okay, that was case 2. We will hear more about Ursula Gall's case and David Bonalla, who is unfortunately her ex who exed her. It's a sad case. We'll hear more about it. There'll be more rumors. Oh, let me just throw this in here. Again, this is complete rumor, and I'm not sure I believe it because, again, it comes from one single person, an ex-Starbucks employee from the area on Austin Street said, oh, he came in all the time and he was writing song lyrics because he imagined himself an artist, and he was flirting inappropriately and leaving love notes. The police said they do have what's that called when someone bothers you like that legally? Like harassment claims that they have, but they don't think it matches him. So perhaps the ex-Starbucks employee is mixing up this guy with another creeper guy. I don't know. That is totally unsubstantiated, and it came from one source. And it was reported mostly by tabloids. So I'm taking that with a grain of salt. We do know, though, that he was a handyman, and that's how he knew her. And he was separated from his wife. And perhaps he put too much of what he thought his life was going to be onto her. And when she took it away, he took her away. What can we take away from it? Try not to have affairs with people who work for you. And try to break up with people and stay broken up, or at least don't let them into your house at 12:30 at night after you've had a drink and maybe aren't, like just saying don't come in, don't come over. I don't know. It's not her fault, but what can we take away from it? When you break up with somebody, break up with somebody. And don't let them in your house ever again. This is flight 3, and we're getting an update on the Valo Daybell case. What are we drinking with Valo Daybell? A little rosé. Why? I don't know. Because I guess Lori's kind of girly. Doesn't it seem rosé to you? Like, can't you see? Sorry. I can kind of imagine her as a rosé girl. Rosé. She kind of seems like she gives me that vibe, even though I know she's a Mormon, and I don't think Mormons drink. Sorry, Mormons out there. And I know that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell do not represent the Mormon tribe, religion, group, belief, faith system. And listen, Christian, like Catholics, Protestant, Jews, everybody's had some cray-cray in their background. So we're not saying that these people represent everybody who's Mormon. But holy moly, did they take it to a new level in their splinter off of the Mormon faith into their own faith with, I believe they called it, their podcast was called Preparing the People, but their religion that they were developing was called like the Church of the Firstborn or something like that. I will look that up. I have thought about that long and hard before. All right. So what happened the week between April 19th, 20th, and today, April 26th? So, number one, the last time we spoke, I had waited to upload until we saw Lori Daybell go to make her first arraignment, in which, now if you were listening to Flight 2, when we talked about Ursula Gall, and we talked about the person who they think is, the suspect in her case, there's 3 ways that a person can plead at their arraignment. They can speak and say guilty or not guilty. They can have their lawyer speak for them, guilty or not guilty, or in some states, reason of insanity. Not in Idaho. There is no reason of insanity, as we know. Or they can remain silent. And then the court enters the plea of not guilty for them as a default. And we saw that that's what happened with Lori. The court, the judge, Boyce, went ahead and just put in the not guilty plea for her because she was silent. So what else has happened since Lori's been in that same time? I think I talked about it last week too, that Chad was in court and they had lots of discussion about should the cases, John Pryor does not want this case to be with Lori, and they want to go to Ida County, which is Boise, and the people in Fremont County want the people from Ida County to be bused back and forth because all the people working this case, it's over 700 miles away. And while it's very inconvenient to bus in the jury, that's 12 people versus like lots and lots of people. And it also leaves the county without people there for other cases involved. It's very confusing. Again, as we talked about previously in the Barry Morphew case, like Chaffee County in Colorado is very small. When you live in these beautiful God's country, they say like in Montana and Idaho and Utah, these beautiful, western states, and lots of other beautiful states where it's very rural, you don't have a lot of the people, a lot of the resources on the law enforcement side. They're not used to dealing with death, especially very convoluted deaths such as this. So we talked about, we didn't get a ruling about that, and as far as I know, again, this is Tuesday, April 26th, I do not believe there's been a ruling about any of this, but there were some more filings after this all happened. Now, Lori is going to go to trial, and since the cases are still joined, I believe Chad will too. That's what, look at me. Rose, we're keeping those cases joined. Here's to that, because they don't want them joined, because if you don't have somebody there, you can't, like, you know, instead of pointing the finger this way and like they did it and you're both doing it, it's just one person with just blaming that other person who's not there. And it's also twice as much expense, and as a taxpayer, who likes that? Especially when we think of somebody's moving and traveling. And they think the case will take about 10 weeks. So that's then 20 weeks. So if just imagine logistical nightmare of having two separate cases, 20 weeks apart. One's supposed to go in October, the next one's supposed to go in January, 700 miles away. That's insanity for moving a whole law enforcement, like all these people. But whatever. Judge Boyce will figure that out. That's a good thing about being just a true crime, dyslexic armchair detective, just chatting with her peeps about, you know, what's happening on the grapevine. We don't have to make the hard decisions. All right, so we have an update on Carly. In case you're wondering, this is Sauvignon. Look at me, as I have to. A Sauvignon Blanc. It's hard to get the enfant noise. All right, so cheers to Cassie, because they've got her killer, as far as we know right now. We think we do. Her ex. Marcus. Here's the dyslexic part. Spinavello. So, you may or may not remember. So, in this case, this was a Florida mom who had a relationship. She had already been married once, had infertility problems, started dating this guy, Marcus, got pregnant right away, really wanted to have a baby. She was already in her 30s. So, you know, anyway, he wasn't the nicest guy. At first, he fought paternity. He then did show up, but she had to keep taking him to court over, like, paying things. And then he was really weird and picky about his visitation every other weekend. And if she had this, like, big event to see her sister's baby shower out of state, and it would be over his weekend, and she was trying to trade him extra weekends. Another weekend, she invited him along. He was like, no, I just... basically fighting with her about the rules, more just to irritate her than not really interested in seeing his child. Anyway, so he ended up meeting her, I think it was March 27th, it was a Sunday, to exchange. He had her for his daughter Sailor for the weekend, a 4-year-old, and was meeting Cassie in Navarro Beach, where she lived, instead of midway between their two cities. He lives in Panama City Beach, and Destin was in between the two. But he said, no, like, I'm going to work in Alabama, so we'll meet at Navarro Beach right at 7 o'clock, which was sunset. Anyway, she was never seen again. And there was an affidavit about the case, and it was highly redacted. It was released, and it tells us more about the story that we had heard, even though it's highly redacted, about him, Marcus's, I don't want to call it a story, but a story of, like, oh, she got in my car, but then we had a fight and she got out, and it was what he had told her father. So in the affidavit, you don't know who he supposedly told this to, but we know from when she was missing that the father had received texts saying that Cassie was, you know, it wasn't in her voice. That's what the sister was saying, and what he reiterated, that he was worried about her. Where was she? And she had said, oh, I'm going home with Marcus, and I'm in his car. And then Marcus had said, oh, no, she jumped out. None of this is accurate. As far as we know right now, and according to the arrest affidavit, it is not accurate. So right now, Marcus is being held on 3 counts. They're related to Cassie's demise, the big M, but her toxicology is still out. So, look at me. We're 4 flights in. Here's 2 toxicologists and law enforcement everywhere who has to look at evidence. So, I always try to tell everybody where my who the juiciest grapes my sources are that I squeezed to tell you what happened this week in true crime. So Duty Ron, who is a law enforcement, he's a retired New York City cop, and he has Ed Wallace on often, who is a retired, not only New York City detective, but also then he was also on the CSI team, and he worked with Barbara Butcher, who is one of the main death investigator people in New York City. And they talked, sorry, I have a little kitty. Hey, you don't touch that. I have a little black cat who wants to get involved and is touching the tripod. Hey baby, come here. Anyway, so Barbara Butcher and Diddy Ron and Ed Wallace had a discussion, and I highly recommend you look it up on YouTube. It's under Duty Ron, and you'll see Barbara Butcher as one of the main people noted in that upload. They talked about how the murder charges aren't out right now because the autopsy results aren't in for Cassie, Carly, sorry, the dyslexic detective, remember? And now we're on the 4th flight. That maybe, not maybe, but because not all departments are funded equally. So Barbara Butcher and Ed Wallace and Duty Ron talked about how in New York City there was an exerted effort to better fund and get cases all moving through the department faster. So their toxicology results, I think Barbara said when she retired they were down to getting them within the week, I believe. But she said before that it wasn't uncommon, 2, 3, 90 days. So in this case, we are waiting longer for toxicology because she was found in Alabama and they had to, I think the autopsy, everything was outsourced into a bigger city in Huntington, Alabama. So, yes. So I'm still watching my little kitty here, wondering if she's going to knock over my camera. Hey, come here. Anyway, so that's that with regards to where the big M charges are in Florida. Well, I think they'll come out of Alabama. Again, this interstate thing makes it problematic because he grabbed her in Florida. We don't know exactly what he did with her. Oh, one of the other things that was in the affidavit was, and I think this was the same source that Ickadmel, spelled I-C-K, capital E, little d, and then capital M-E-L, Ickadmel altogether. He's on both Twitter, but you can find him on YouTube, and he does lives of true crime. He had a source in Navarro Beach, Florida, who was in these condos. So the affidavit says from the condo buildings, nearby condo buildings, that they could see that one, she was not in that nobody was in the passenger seat, and two, that he had said he had not touched this other, I forget how they said, like the interest of the vehicle of interest, or basically they don't say Marcus said he didn't touch Cassie's car, but we have evidence that he did. But we know that Cassie's car, she pulled up. Later they found her car in that parking lot with her purse and all her items. And apparently there's evidence now that, yes, he did enter that vehicle. Yeah, because he put all, So, and what I had reported a couple weeks ago was that Ickadmel said, had this lady on his program who, and he had a picture of it from really far away, but you could zoom in and see that his truck with this big van, that you could see the door to the big van was open. Like that's maybe where he put her. But we don't know, did he give her something to knock her out? That's what we're waiting for with toxicology. So we're still waiting for the big M charges because we're still waiting on the toxicology. And the truth of the matter is, we do this right. You do it slow, you do it right, you do it one time. So, but in the meantime, he's being held on 3 charges, which are tampering with evidence, false information to law enforcement, obstructing justice, and refusing to give his DNA when he was brought back last week to Santa Rosa County in Navarro, Florida area. So he his next arraignment was supposed to be May 5th, but he has waived that arraignment. I don't know, he's, in my opinion, this is just my opinion as far as we know so far, and again, my speculation, allegedly, seems like a narcissist. Like, he thinks he's funny, he's controlling the thing. I will do this, I won't do that, waive this, I don't care. You do all the work, I'm not going to tell you anything. Very much seems like a narcissistic personality. That is just my opinion. I do not know this. Oh, and it came out last Thursday that his aunt on his father's side, her name is Nivea, Neiva, Spanavello, that she claims, oh, he's really innocent because he works all the time. He's a hard worker. I don't know how that makes him innocent of the big M when he's had all these problems previously with the mother of the child and about custody arrangement and paternity and all this stuff. I don't buy it, but of course that is her right to believe what she wants. So yes, he waived his right to his arraignment. Last Thursday, again, he entered a plea of not guilty for the charges. Or it was entered for him, I believe. He did that thing where he didn't say. Anyway, so we are going to be waiting to hear more. Again, he's, and the aunt said maybe she'd pay his $21,000 bond. Although I doubt it, because pretty soon we're going to have the big charges. But I don't think he's going anywhere. He's claimed he's indigent so that he gets a free lawyer. I don't know. This is our wine flight number 5. We've got a nice Riesling here. Nice Riesling. For a little chat about Bear. Little Barry Morphew. Here's to you, Barry, and your freedom, as it is so far. I love Riesling, FYI. Alright, so, just 2 little things about, so Barry Morphew's case was dismissed. The prosecutor said, we don't have enough right now and we need to look more, and the victim's brother and sister agreed, and of course Barry was happy. He acts like he's innocent. Now, what the DA in Chaffee County said, Linda Stanley said in her pleading was, there is 5 feet of packed snow. We think we know where her body is. We will be looking, but the ground needs to thaw. And until we have the body, we can't have definitive evidence. Therefore, we need to dismiss this case right now. All right. Seems fair enough. Seems very logical. I believe 2 episodes ago, in episode 8, I thought maybe they should do that, right? And then they also have a chance to cure some of the other issues that happened. Okay, small county, don't really have a lot of these cases. Oh, and they did emphasize that they suspect it is in a remote area near the old Morphew home. So that's interesting, because there was some talk at the time about that he had turned towards a road that had a mine area on it. And then also, if you follow It's a Crime, and Linda is the host. Hi, Linda. We love you. She is so good and really diving into details and then making connections. And she is a non-professional, but she probably should be a professional. She's really good at not only digging into details, but her connections usually turn out to be accurate so far, and I've been watching her for over a year. It's a Crime on YouTube. Her name is Linda. It's got a teal colored icon that has like 2 hands. Go watch Linda, and she's got playlists about Barry Morphew, and I'm just telling you, she has been really digging into his behavior. And okay, I've said it before, I am not non-biased about this, because I think of all the true crime I've read, and I'm just a reader of true crime, but I also do know about problem solving skills and about motivation and how people act. And I am just telling you, I think Linda is on target with everything here. So anyway, she has talked a lot about that she thinks he buries things. I mean, he's got a habit of burying things. He buried things. And she mentioned that some areas that she had of concern in what she called the triangle near Barry's home in the remote mountainous area. So I think Linda Stanley is onto something, and I think that's an accurate thing. Oh, there was, and the other thing that they talked about that Linda brought up that's not directly related, but very interesting, is that she was reading some research by the Body Farm, it's associated, I think, with the FBI. It is where they look at cadavers in all different positions and ways of burying to see how they decompose, the rate of decomposure, what happens inside, outside, if they're buried, if they're on top of the ground, in all different conditions, which helps out law enforcement when they're looking for evidence to calculate time of death or to find somebody. Well, one of these things is she read that they were looking at when a body is buried, what happens to the foliage on top of that spot. And it was very interesting about how things could die away at first because of the extra, I believe, alkaline or acidity, I don't remember which one it is, that the body breaking down would provide, but then it would flourish even more, and that they were studying these things. And that perhaps that is the kind of data that Chaffee County could now make use of, which would be great. Or whoever, because we don't know what exactly happens, but it would be great to find her body, and I'm sure everybody in the Morphew family would agree with that, right? I know the girls would, and I'm certain Barry would too, right? So, while we're waiting for the ground to thaw, and while we're waiting to see if they're right about where Suzanne is, the other interesting little tidbit, and unless you're on Twitter and following things, there's this account, I believe it's Tom Scruggs, who I follow, and also I follow Lauren Sharf from Fox News, who's been one of the main contributors, reporters, of the story. She's gone to the trial. There is something very odd happening. So Barry's attorney, Iris Eaton. So I looked her up because I'm like, what is going on? She seems to be like, she attacked Lauren Sharf so Barry gets off, right? And they're like, he's vindicated, everything you expected, a good defense attorney to say, right? Like, to be for his client. So I looked up more about her because I thought at this thing, she called out Lauren Sharf and said, like, the press of people like you, Lauren Sharf, by name, like, pointing at her and everything. I believe that's from my recollection, in my opinion, allegedly. But it looked weird. Like, why is she targeting Lauren? Lauren Sharf, go look up her Twitter. Follow her, please. Look up her YouTube. She's like a step above me, but like, she's producing her own stuff with her camera. After she goes to the trial, she just talks, and she is very non-biased. She's a reporter. She's not for or against Barry Morphew. So I don't know why his lawyer is acting psycho. Except, so if you go on Twitter, there was this weird fight with this other reporter girl named Ashley somebody from a station, and it seems like she was pro-Barry, like Barry's being railroaded and blah, blah. She sounded like she's part of the defense team. And then there was some weird interaction so the case had turned to be like a gag order case. You couldn't share anything with anybody. Nobody was supposed to be talking about it. You couldn't, when you were even in court, they couldn't tweet. They had to talk about it afterwards. But this one Ashley reporter, I guess, ended up with a filing by the defense before anybody else could get it. So officially it was like filed, so it had been filed. But she had to have gotten it from the defense because the defense wrote it and nobody else could publicly get it. And you ask, why is that a big deal? Well, one, it's against the gag order. You're not supposed to, neither side was supposed to be sharing stuff with reporters. But it was a pro-Barry reporter, and that reporter was attacking Lauren Sharf on Twitter all the time. So then Iris Eaton goes and attacks. And I'm like, what is going on? So Iris Eaton, Iris, I am sorry, but I looked you up because I kind of thought you looked like I wondered, okay, you, between Iris and Drew, okay, I'm gonna, like, yes, I was a cheerleader, and yes, I was in a sorority. I wouldn't say I was popular, but I could blend as popular. I'm a weirdo. I mean, I was always into true crime, and I'm kind of like a geek, but I could blend. I don't know if Iris could blend. I looked her up because I was like, what is, like, I thought she seems to be getting into, like, is this Ashley girl playing her? Like, oh, you're popular now with me. Let's be popular Mean Girls, because that's what it came across as. And then if you look up into the backgrounds, so yeah, Iris was a first generation person. Her parents were from Iraq, I believe. I'm going to sound like a dumb white biatch from America, which I can't say I'm not, because it could have been Iran, but I think it was Iraq. But they came here. You know, there's been a lot of problems over there, right? She was born here. But I'm saying raised by immigrants, working really hard. She's very tall. I don't know if she actually is striking looking. She is attractive, but she does look like ethnic, and I don't know if Arizona, how people are there, if they're racist or not. But I can see how she felt different. And so, like, is this Ashley girl? I really feel like this Ashley girl got her under her skin. And then when you look up their background, they say, like, Drew Nielsen is basically the calm, logical one, blah, blah, blah. And Iris is, like, emotional and heated. And I'm like, Iris Eaton, girl, check yourself before you wreck yourself, because I don't think that Ashley girl, like, you shouldn't be fighting Lauren Scharf. You're a lawyer. You are amazing. You get off people all the time. I think you got taken in by some girl playing off perhaps some deep-rooted insecurities. Now, that's just me guessing as to what would make a very intelligent, very capable, very successful, like award-winning lawyer act like a freaking plastic from Mean Girls. And the only thing I could figure out, and the only thing is that chick. So, I don't know nothing about nothing. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not as smart as Iris. But I do know girls. And I know Mean Girls. And that Ashley thing, and getting her and Iris, and getting Iris to, like, fight Lauren and make fun of her, and that smacks of Mean Girl stuff. And that's the real squeeze out of the Grapevine from my point of view. All right, so Bear is off the hook. He is a free man. He got all his $500,000 of his bail back. Does not have to be GPS. He got his passport back. He can go wherever he wants. So good for him. Let's find Suzanne's killer. Let's find Suzanne's body. And I hope they do know where it is, because then we'll know who did it. We are to Flight 6. For Flight 6, we are having some Chardonnay. And let me just say I have some nay, like as in nay, news. We have two little quick nay, not very exciting, remains of the day here to chat about. Again, this is Flight 6 on the 10th episode. It is true crime. I'm the dyslexic detective, if you can't tell. This is True Crime Tuesday, and it is April 26th, and we're almost finished with episode 10. So the two cases that we have to go with our Chardonnay. Yeah, Chardonnay isn't my favorite either, and neither is Letitia Stout. So Letitia Stout, she is literally like a Disney evil step monster. She is allegedly the person who beat and bludgeoned and I think even shot her stepson, who was Gavin Stout, a beautiful child, just starting his life. He was a 5th grader, 11 years old. This was in 2000, I believe it was 2020, in Colorado Springs. Boy, Colorado Springs, true crime. I'm not kidding you. There's a lot of true crime that happens there. Real big mystery stuff. I wouldn't move to Colorado Springs. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous there, from what I can tell, but I'm just saying. Anyways, so Letitia Stout in 2020, she reported her stepson missing, and actually he wasn't, and then she went on this weird trip back to her hometown in South Carolina, but I think she stopped. They found out through GPS, I believe, or they claim, the evidence is that she went to Florida, which was where Gavin was found in a suitcase, wrapped in his blanket from home. I mean, she was the one who said he was missing. She was the one who made up a little fib about a friend who I believe did not exist. She wasn't very nice. Anyways, that was all in 2020. Since then, she's fought with her one lawyers. Then she said, no, I'm crazy. No, I want to be pro se, which means you want to represent yourself. And that went like, crazy. And again, it's a crime, Linda. It's a crime, boom, boom. It looks like 2 handprints, and it's teal on a white background. Linda has a great playlist on this. She has followed it. She has doggedly pursued this. And it's a crime, Linda, who alerted me. And then I looked it up, and krwo.com, 13ABC, Colorado Springs, had an update that she has new lawyers, and in February they pled for her, I think it was February 11th, that she changed her plea from not guilty to, hold on a second, we've got an emergency. She changed her plea from guilty to not guilty by reason of insanity. So unlike Idaho, in Colorado you can still plead not guilty by reason of insanity. So that's what she's changed it to. And she's been at the Colorado she's been tested for competency. Now, she got tested for competency twice before and was found to be competent. Now she's being tested again at the Colorado Mental Health Institute at Pueblo, which is known as CHHIP or CMHIP. And her lawyer is saying that she's from South Carolina and they need to go to South Carolina to obtain some evidence, and this is going to take more time. And so therefore, instead of having the date that she was supposed to have this week, I believe, and he said to complete that report, they need to go to South Carolina. So that will be done June 9th. Again, we're having a little emergency out going by us. So she will be back in court. They asked how long will this take, and her lawyer said, they figured everything would be finished by June 9th. So we will see her June 9th, 22. Letitia Stout, you need your day in court, and we need to see no more of you. You've taken up enough of our time. All right, the other person who's taken up enough of our time, let's raise a glass to the person who will be sentenced and pled guilty to fraud, Sherry Papini. Sour grapes. Yes, sour grapes. Chardonnay is not my friend, and neither is Sherry Papini. Hey, so the big news about Sherry Papini, we know that we will see her, I believe, in June to be sentenced, but, and we don't know how long. This week, last time I spoke with you on Tuesday, previously on the 20th, I believe, she had pled guilty. We knew that. Now, the next day, her husband, Keith, who had been through this whole, like, oh my God, where is she? Oh my God. And I really do think, okay, we have another emergency. let's hope I don't have a story here in Ohio. Um, we know, anyway, he stood by her through this whole thing. And now she's pled guilty. That's all over with. And he is like, amen. Let's put that to bed. That is settled. Now I want a divorce. And who can blame him? He's asking for full custody of the kids and claiming that she's been able to have some visitation, and she even missed one of those visits. He does not want to be financially responsible for any of the debts incurred by her crimes. So, like, she has to pay restitution. He would like to legally not be involved in that, and he would like to maintain the couple's the property of the marriage, which is the home and 3 vehicles. So I don't know if he'll get all that, but he definitely shouldn't. I don't know what evidence they have, but it seems as if he didn't know and that he was just supportive and that she took him for a ride. She seems to have a little bit of, imagination and needs a lot of attention and makes up stories and has her whole life. So there's that. Anyways, that was that little bit, and the only thing we have left is the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, little celebrity talk. Okay, so what about celebrities? This is just a fun little part. Oh, that tastes good. All right. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. So you may or may not know that Johnny Depp is suing Amber Heard for defamation because she has claimed he essayed her in an article, op-ed in the Washington Post, I believe. And he had previously lost a case in the UK because in the UK he was saying that the publication there basically had printed lies. And the thing was, the publication said, no, we printed what basically Amber Heard said. So they couldn't be accused of printing lies because she had said those things. She was the liar, not them, is how that all shook out. So that didn't work out in the UK because basically they're just reporting the truth, even though it was Amber Heard's truth. That doesn't make them liable. I guess that's how tabloids work, right? And we're on the True Crime Grapevine, in case you don't know. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, the thumbs up. Maybe hit the bell for notifications if you want to know when I upload. I upload every Tuesday, every True Crime Tuesday in long form, and hopefully either soon, later Tuesday or on Wednesday or Thursday, you'll see like little chunks of individual cases. Anyway, so speaking of tabloids, so I'm the True Crime Grapevine, which means I'm just telling you about the news and my impression of what everybody's saying, which is kind of like rumors, which is kind of like tabloids. But anyways, so again, all allegedly, all my opinion. In this case, it's a civil case, not a criminal case, right? In this case, all I can say is that here's to Jack Sparrow. Not because I have a crush on Johnny Depp like most every 50-something woman does. No, not really my type. But when you listen to him speak, you hear, I don't know, if you work with children, you might understand. He seems like broken and sad and very sensitive, and he speaks in this flowery ADHD. I would say I don't know if Johnny Depp is dyslexic, but he speaks in that very circular way. He answers questions circularly, like he doesn't answer them bloop 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 in a straightforward logical way. And what he says seems to me authentically like a victim of DV. Again, do I have proof? I wasn't there. I don't know. The other thing is, I've been watching not only I always watch the body, what are they called? The body panel There's 4 guys. I'll try to link it below. I love them as a resource. I'm trying to think of what it's called. The Body something panel. And this other guy who I found who, he's just very amusing to listen to. I don't know if it's because I love his accent, but he's called the Body Language Guy. But they break apart, if you know anything about body language analysis, looking for micro expressions at a la Paul Ekman, who in I didn't study Paul Ekman, but I did hear about him in some of my classes, even though I studied like typical psychology. Every once and again, somebody would mention something from like more niche areas of psychology. So Paul Ekman studied micro expressions, and he very interestingly found them over all different cultures, which was interesting, right? Because it's hard to find something that is equatable over all different cultures. There's a number of developmental things which is of interest to me as a developmental psychologist, who is ABD, because I didn't finish my dissertation, bringing us right back to dyslexia and ADHD. So we have on one hand Johnny Depp, who seems authentic, if not a little circular in his speech. Amber Heard, on the other hand, now we haven't heard her testify yet. I just want to say that behavioral analysis matches somewhat of, I just saw her at first in court and was intrigued because her face, you would see like weird swipes of, like she'd be just staring. And then, but I can't even do it. There'd be this weird wash of an expression across her face that looked like nasty, like like contempt. That was, I think, the micro expression. And then these analysis, especially the one guy who was, he took a I don't know if it was from her deposition or if I think it was just maybe her in court. It was like 2.5 minutes long, and he broke it down second by second, but you could see some of her expressions. Oh, and he also broke down video that she took illegally, I might add. Oh, I don't know, it was in Australia, so I don't know if that was illegally, but she took videotape of Johnny Depp in California, which is you have to get both people's agreement before you use tape. You can't tape people without their acknowledgement, and she did that constantly, I guess, in California. In Ohio, one person can't tape another person, just one person has to know. So like somebody can't surreptitiously tape 2 individuals who aren't aware, but one person can be aware where the other party is not. In California, both parties, I believe the law is that should be aware that they are being taped. But in this case, because it's a civil case and it's a DV case, and Johnny's side waived the right to show those. He's like, yeah, show them. So this guy who's looking at this one tape that she took, you can see it's her coffee cup. He comes in, he's slamming cabinets, which I don't know if you've ever been angry, but apparently he lost $650 million that day, or was told he owed that because of a tax issue, like somebody didn't tell him to pay his taxes right. I don't know. To me, I don't know. I'm a highly emotional person. I bet Iris Eaton would understand this. If you're known as somebody who's got a fiery temperament and is very emotional and expressive, slamming cabinets or slamming a door, okay, it's not the same as hitting a person. You're just very expressive and angry. In this thing, she's like, what's wrong? What happened? And she's moving her cup to hide the camera over and over again. And he pours this big thing of wine and then apparently sees the camera and yells at her about, what is this? For a second, she moves the camera. You can hear her go, and then you see her face. And he freeze framed it. She's like going, this like contemptuous smile. I am sorry, but anybody has been DV'd, it's been Johnny Depp, not her. And regardless of, and the case isn't about DV. It isn't a case of I'm DV'd or you are. The case is you defamed me. And it said that she was a victim of SAV. Not just DV, like SA. and if that, I'm sorry, I'm using YouTube speak, Podbean people. I hope everybody understands that. So YouTube has an algorithm that might follow certain words, and even though my producer has made sure that we're not on the total open ads so that people have some warning, because the channel's about true crime, I just don't want to get in trouble by saying some words fully. But dude, or dudettes. Sorry, I'm from the 80s and 90s. But no. She was not essayed, or I believe they had a very horrible relationship where they both screamed and yelled. But if anybody was physically abusive, no offense, all the evidence seems to be her, and very psychologically manipulative, who follows you around with a camera and tries to get you ticked off so that you do stuff to get you in trouble. That is not normal behavior. So today, apparently, a psychologist sort of outlined the parameters for someone who has a personality disorder, which is, if you know anything about the the Diagnostic Manual, the DSM, and it's up to 5 revised, and they're, I think, working on 6. But when you know about it, basically they just get a bunch of people to agree on what they think a problem is. I mean, people who are educated in psychology, but it's not medical. See, so it's very separate from a medical diagnosis, even though now we're seeing more of an integration of all, like if you have a mental issue, it tends to have at least partly a physical, like a biological etiology. Anyway, again, abnormal psych is not my deal. I only know very little bits about how the DSM is revised by groups of individuals. But what I'm saying is, this woman who's a psychologist came and said, on these current descriptors, she does seem to meet a descriptor of a what we call borderline personality. People call it vulnerable narcissism because they're narcissists, but they're vulnerable, like they're like, poor me. It was very interesting on cross-examination of the psychologist, how the woman tried to get her to say, but you didn't examine her. And she's like saying, no, but I mean, she's looking at the situation and making a judgment because the psychologist is an expert. And just let me tell you, I'm an expert in typical development, but in my opinion, allegedly, just speculation, Amber Heard has narcissistic tendencies, if you call it a vulnerable narcissist, or if you call it a borderline personality. The woman could not let him go. Like, he was not getting out of the relationship if she could help it. Physically, emotionally, and now legally. I don't know. What do you think? Put your comments below if you have any feelings about this. I do think men can be victims of DV. I do think, though, definitely that when one partner can't let go, they do, like, they can keep coming at you and not let you go no matter what. And in this case, with all the publicity, putting out statements like, oh, poor me, I'm a victim of DV. I was SA DV'd, actually. And, you know, the guy lost roles. He lost Pirates of the Caribbean, his Hallmark role that he made up the character. And then he lost the Grindelwald in the Harry Potter movie of, what is it, Fantastical Beasts? I'm getting lost in the Harry Potter series. But I definitely think, A, she defamed him, because she can't prove that he did that. And he did lose something. That's what defamation is. She can't prove he is that. It doesn't matter that she is the thing that she was saying. And let's just talk about projection. All right. That's all there is to do about that. Here's the bubbly. Here's to week 10 being in the can. And please, if you're interested and would like to support my channel, please subscribe. Please hit the bell. Please hit the thumbs up. And I will see you next Tuesday, next True Crime Tuesday. I will upload. And until then, cheers. Bye.